Disclaimer: this content is only for mature audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. I was lying in bed, the kind of stillness hanging in the room that only comes late at night, when the world has gone quiet and your thoughts get louder. The window was cracked just enough to let in the soft hum of summer crickets, and the bedside lamp cast a low golden glow across the sheets. I wasn't expecting anything. The house was settled, calm, and I had already shut my book and closed my eyes. Then there it was. A knock. Just once. Not loud. Not hurried. Just one solid tap on the bedroom door. I opened my eyes, heart picking up a beat. It wasn't the kind of knock you ignore. I sat up slowly, my fingers brushing over the blanket, and I called out softly, "Yeah." No answer. I waited a second longer, then got up and walked toward the door. When I opened it, I found him standing there, my stepson. 23, tall, and clearly restless. His hair was messy like he'd been tossing in bed, his gray t-shirt clinging slightly from the humidity. There was something in his eyes, hesitation, maybe? Or something else. He didn't speak right away. Just looked at me like he was working out whether to say the thing on his mind or walk away from it forever. The hallway behind him was dark, his shadow long across the wooden floor. "Hey," he finally said, his voice low. "You awake?" I nodded. "You knocked." He gave a quiet laugh, rubbing the back of his neck. "Yeah, I know. Sorry. I couldn't sleep." I didn't move. Didn't step aside. Just watched him for a moment, trying to read what was sitting behind his words. This wasn't the first time we'd had these late-night talks, quick conversations in the kitchen when the world felt a little too big. But this time felt different. More charged. I asked, "Everything okay?" He looked up at me then, really looked. "I think I just needed to see you." That answer hung there, thick between us. The air was still, except for the quiet creak of the floorboards as he shifted his weight. Part of me knew I should have told him to go back to bed, but another part, the one that felt his eyes holding on to mine, was already stepping into unknown ground. Before I could respond, he said something that changed the whole night. But that's where I'll stop for now. Because what happened next, that's something you'll need to hear for yourself. I stood there in the doorway, barely breathing. His words were still settling in the air. "I just needed to see you." Simple enough on the surface, but it carried weight. Something behind it. Something unspoken. He didn't step closer, didn't try to come in. He just stood there, waiting for my reaction. I wasn't sure what to say. So I moved to the side a little, an unspoken invitation. He hesitated, then finally stepped into the room, slowly, like he wasn't sure he should be doing this. The door clicked softly shut behind him. I could feel the tension rise with the quiet. The room suddenly felt smaller. He looked around like he was buying time, his eyes brushing over the lamp, the books on the nightstand, the way my blanket was still creased from where I'd been lying. "I know this is weird," he said, finally breaking the silence. "I just didn't want to be alone tonight." I nodded slowly, crossing my arms not to push him away, but more to steady myself. "You want to talk?" He sat on the edge of the bed, hands resting on his knees. "I've been thinking a lot lately. About everything. About how this house never really felt like mine, until you came into it. That caught me off guard." He glanced up at me, eyes searching. "After my mom passed, it was just me and Dad, and he didn't talk much. He buried himself in work. I tried to keep busy too, but the house felt cold. Then you came. And it was like everything warmed up again. You didn't just move in, you changed things." I sat down in the armchair across from him. "I didn't know you felt that way." "I didn't either, for a while. But the truth is, you've always made me feel seen." There was an honesty in his voice that I hadn't heard before. A crack in the wall he always kept up. I thought back to all those moments, the times we'd passed in the kitchen, the laughs during movie nights, the way our eyes sometimes held a beat too long. I tried to keep my tone light. "You've grown a lot these past few years. I've noticed." He gave a short laugh, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I don't know what I'm doing most days. But I do know I think about you more than I should. That stopped me. He looked down, maybe regretting saying it, but he didn't take it back. The air thickened again, but not with fear, just uncertainty. Emotion. The kind that comes when boundaries start to blur and you're not sure who's supposed to say what next. I looked at him, really looked, at the boy who wasn't a boy anymore, who'd grown into a man while I'd been trying to keep things normal. He said, I know I'm crossing lines even being here. I had to say something. I didn't answer right away. Because the truth was, I didn't know if I wanted to stop him. And right then, a sound from downstairs made both of us freeze. The sound downstairs was soft, maybe a creak or something shifting, but it was enough to break the moment. We both sat still, staring at each other, listening. The house was old. It made noises sometimes. Still, the timing of it made my heart jump. He looked toward the door, jaw tight, like he was bracing himself. Probably just the AC kicking in, he said quietly. Maybe it was. Or maybe it wasn't. Either way, whatever tension had been building between us shifted again, pulling back like a tide, but only for a second. I stood up and moved to the window, just to distract myself. The outside world was still, shadows dancing from the streetlight filtering through the leaves. I didn't say anything for a moment. I could feel him watching me. He finally broke the silence. I didn't mean to mess things up by coming in here. You didn't, I said, too quickly. Then I turned to look at him. But this isn't nothing. You know that, right? He nodded slowly. I know. I've been trying not to say anything. For months. Every time I see you, I tell myself to just act normal, keep things easy. But then it gets late, and I can't sleep, and all I can think about is how different things feel when it's just you and me. His voice was calm, but every word added pressure. I felt it deep in my chest. There were too many things to consider, too many lines we'd both be crossing if this kept going. But it wasn't just one of us pushing it forward. It never had been. I sat on the edge of the window seat and stared at the floor. You've been through a lot, I said quietly. Your mom's gone. Your dad works all the time. And me? I stepped in and tried to hold the pieces together. Maybe we're both leaning on each other more than we should. He ran a hand through his hair. Maybe. Or maybe we're just the only ones paying attention to what's real. I didn't know how to respond to that. Because part of me agreed with him. The other part was scared of what that meant. From down the hall, the sound of the refrigerator motor hummed to life. Another reminder that we weren't in some alternate world where none of this mattered. We were in a real house, with real walls, and people who could walk in at any moment. Has your dad said anything? I asked. About us. He looked surprised. No. Should he? No, I said. Too fast again. But his question stuck in my mind. Did anyone else notice something between us? Had I let anything slip without meaning to? He leaned back on his hands, looking up at the ceiling. Do you ever wonder if we met in a different way? Like not here, not like this. If things would have been easier? I didn't answer, but I knew exactly what he meant. And the worst part? I didn't hate that he said it. The room had gone quiet again, but it wasn't peaceful. It was the kind of quiet that made every breath feel louder than it should. I stood up from the window seat, unsure of what to do with myself, and walked over to the dresser, pretending to straighten something that didn't need fixing. My hands were restless. My mind was even worse. He hadn't moved much, but I could feel his eyes on me. Watching. Waiting. The weight of everything unsaid was piling up between us. I shouldn't have said that, he said finally. About if we'd met somewhere else. But I didn't correct him. Because what he said had echoed in my head too many times before. All those passing thoughts, moments I brushed off, they were starting to form something bigger, something I wasn't ready to name. You don't have to take it back, I said without turning around. I think about it sometimes too. There. I said it. And now there was no taking it back either. I heard the mattress creak as he sat forward. So, what do we do with that? That question. That impossible question. I turned slowly and leaned back against the dresser, arms crossed tight across my chest. We don't do anything, I said. We can't. But we're already doing something, he said. Even if we're not saying it out loud. His voice wasn't angry, it was steady, honest. That made it harder. If he'd been reckless or immature, it would have been easy to shut it all down. But he wasn't. He was calm, thoughtful, and he wasn't wrong. I took a slow breath. If your dad ever found out, he shook his head. He doesn't even notice what's going on in this house. He's checked out. You know that. That doesn't make this right. Doesn't make it wrong either, he said, eyes locked on mine. I looked away, the pressure in my chest growing. The walls felt closer than before. The air thicker. I don't know what you expect from me, I said. Because us, can't go anywhere. I don't expect anything, he replied. But I'm not going to lie to you. Not anymore. Just then, footsteps creaked on the stairs. We both froze. He stood quickly, eyes wide. The hallway light flicked on outside the door, a faint strip of it glowing at the bottom. Neither of us moved or spoke. The footsteps paused right outside. A shadow fell across the floor. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. He stepped back, moving toward the far side of the room, quiet as possible. I stood perfectly still, not even breathing. The doorknob shifted, just slightly, and then it stopped. A moment passed. The footsteps moved again, this time heading back down the stairs. The light turned off. He looked at me, his expression changed. More serious. More real. And in that heavy silence, I knew we had just crossed a line, even if no one else knew it yet. The silence after the footsteps faded was louder than anything. I stayed frozen for a moment, waiting to hear the creak again, the return of whoever had been standing just outside that door. But it never came. The house slipped back into stillness like nothing had happened. He exhaled, barely a sound, and leaned against the wall, hands on his hips. His eyes found mine across the room, but we didn't say a word. We didn't have to. Whatever line we'd been towing. It wasn't just in our heads anymore. Someone else had been out there. Listening? Watching? We didn't know. I crossed the room and whispered, "You should go." He didn't argue this time. Just nodded and moved to the door. But as his hand touched the knob, I said quietly, "Be careful." He turned back, eyes holding onto mine a beat longer than they should have. Then he slipped out, soft as a shadow. I stood alone, trying to steady my breathing. But just as I moved to turn off the lamp, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. One buzz, then another. 2 messages, both from my husband. Still at the office. "Don't wait up." Also, "Why did you take the call from Lacey?" My stomach dropped. I hadn't. Not tonight, at least. I hadn't spoken to Lacey in weeks. She was my husband's coworker, someone I'd always had an odd feeling about. Too familiar. Too often around. I unlocked my phone and saw it. A missed call from her number. Logged an hour ago. Followed by a short voicemail. I hit play, holding the phone close to my ear. Her voice was sharp. Annoyed. "I don't know what game you're playing answering his phone, but if you think this is going to stop anything, it's not. He and I were something long before you showed up. Stay in your lane." I sat down hard on the edge of the bed. My hands trembled. I hadn't touched his phone. So, if someone had answered it, who was she talking to? The answer came too fast. He had his dad's phone. My stepson. He'd answered it. And now somehow he knew. That changed everything. I grabbed my robe, pacing the room, the pieces falling into place. His restlessness tonight. The reason he showed up. The things he said. "I think about you more than I should." He hadn't just come to talk. He came because he heard something. Maybe everything. And now, with that voicemail sitting in my inbox like a ticking bomb, the walls of this house suddenly felt even thinner. I didn't know if I should confront him. Ask what he knew. Or if I should call my husband and ask him what the hell was going on. But all I could think about was the knock on the door. Just once. And how it had changed everything. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the phone, that voicemail playing over and over in my head. Her voice sharp, smug, so sure she had something over me. But what she didn't know was, she'd just lit the fuse on everything. By morning, I had made a decision. No more silence. No more pretending. The sun barely started rising when I heard the front door open. My husband was home. Early. Unusual. I stayed upstairs, heart pounding, listening as he moved through the kitchen. He didn't call out. Just the quiet clink of a glass, the low creak of the fridge. Then I heard footsteps, lighter ones, coming from the guest room. He was awake too. I didn't wait. I walked downstairs slowly, robe tied tight, phone in hand. I found both of them in the kitchen. My husband standing by the counter. My stepson leaning against the wall, arms crossed, eyes already locked on mine like he knew this moment was coming. Morning, my husband said, voice casual, like nothing was wrong. I held up the phone. Lacey called, left me a message. Thought I answered your phone. His face didn't change, not even a flinch. She's been drinking again. She gets things mixed up. My stepson let out a quiet laugh, like he'd heard the worst excuse in the world. You really going with that, he said, pushing off the wall. My husband turned to him, brow furrowed. You want to stay out of this? No, he said, stepping forward. Actually, I don't. I stood there, caught between them, heart thudding in my chest. He looked straight at his father. You've been lying. For months. And don't pretend you weren't. I answered your phone last night because it wouldn't stop buzzing. I didn't expect that. My husband looked at me now. You put him up to this? I laughed, cold and bitter. You really think I planned any of this? You're in my house, he said. Both of you. Acting like I'm the one who's lost control. My stepson stepped in. You have lost control. You lost it the day you stopped paying attention to the people around you. The day you started treating her like furniture instead of a person. Silence. Just breathing. Heavy, tight. And then, for a moment, my husband's face cracked. Not anger, something else. Guilt, maybe? Or fear. I turned toward the door, needing air, space, anything but this room. But before I could open it, my husband said quietly, she's pregnant. The words hit like a punch to the chest. I turned back slowly. Lacey? He nodded. Didn't look at me. It wasn't supposed to go that far. My stepson stepped between us. You don't get to play the victim now. But I didn't say anything. I couldn't. I was too busy realizing the final twist wasn't what he'd done, it was how free I felt hearing it. Because now I knew. I didn't owe him anything anymore. And I wasn't the one who needed to walk away. I didn't say another word. I just walked out of the kitchen, out of the house, and into the quiet morning. The air was still cool, and for the first time in a long while, it felt like I could finally breathe. No more guessing. No more holding in everything I felt. It was all out now. Every secret. Every truth. Behind me, I heard raised voices, his trying to explain, my stepson pushing back. But I kept walking, because none of it mattered the same way anymore. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even about heartbreak. It was about knowing the truth, standing in it, and choosing what to do with it. He had cheated. He had built a lie on top of the life we were trying to have. And in a strange, painful way, that truth had given me clarity. The kind you can't ignore once you see it. And my stepson? He saw me. Not as someone to fix or comfort, but as a person with her own thoughts, her own pain. He had been honest, even when it made things harder. That morning changed everything. Not because of what was said, but because of what I finally let go of. Sometimes love shows up in the wrong place at the wrong time, and you don't know what to do with it. But sometimes, it's the mess that helps you see what matters. So, if you're still watching, ask yourself, what would you have done? Would you have stayed? Would you have walked away sooner? Or is there a part of you that understands how complicated hearts can be? Let me know in the comments. I want to hear how you feel about the ending. And if you'd want to see what happens next, because maybe, just maybe, this story isn't over yet.